If living near a world-class park is important to you, but without the prices of Golden Gate Park living, you are in luck. I'm going to show you some of the most affordable and some of my favorite neighborhoods surrounding John McClaren Park. It's a surprisingly very hidden park in San Francisco. It has 7 miles of walking trails, a lake, a golf course, an amphitheater, dozens of recreational activities. You're not going to want to miss spending time in this park. If you are interested in other neighborhoods in San Francisco, check out our YouTube channel. We're releasing new videos every Monday at 5 p.m. Let's start with the first neighborhood. It's probably the most significant in terms of John McClaren Park because it houses the park. It's the Excelsior neighborhood in San Francisco. I live right by Golden Gate Park, and seriously, I can tell you what a game changer living by a massive park makes to your lifestyle, especially with city living, because a lot of people in the city don't have access to any yards. They have access to really small yards. If you have kids, if you're really active, it's super important to have that space nearby. So I can attest that it's so crucial to San Francisco living. I'm going to talk through all of the reasons that I love the Excelsior neighborhood, but first of all, I think we have to talk about the star of the show, John McClaren Park. So the Excelsior touches right up against the park, and it's all throughout the eastern side of the Excelsior. John McClaren Park is seriously such a special part of San Francisco, and I'm on a mission for more people to come to this park. So it's actually less sort of overrun than Golden Gate Park, less busy than Golden Gate Park. It's a little bit more wilder and free than that park. Fewer people just come to this one. There are massive, massive views. So this park is hillier than Golden Gate Park. And so even though you're further away from the downtown section of the city, you have these stunning views of the city skyline throughout the park. So not to miss, you can also see Mount Diablo in the East Bay. There's a lot of other special things in the park. There's a public pool, there's a dirt bike course, a ropes course. My clients tell me, they live in the Excelsior with kids, they tell me that there is Parks and Rec sets up these resource days in a parking lot in the park, and they will give out compost and seeds and seed starts. My clients are currently growing zucchini and tomatoes from those seeds in their backyard. So it's just like a fun kind of community around the park as well. There's massive, massive views from the park. Outside of John McClaren Park, you also have San Bruno Mountain and State Park, which is to the south, technically outside of the city, but probably a 10-minute drive from here. Massive, massive amount of green space, hiking trails, and all of that. So you have two really major parks accessible from Excelsior. Okay, so what else is special about the Excelsior? Well, it's flanked by 280 to the north. It is more remote neighborhood in San Francisco, but it is very close to some of the more recognizable and popular spots like Noe, Bernal, Glen Park, Mission, all just to the north of the Excelsior. So it has more of a quiet, like remote residential feeling to it, but it is massively accessible. There are 2 BART stations nearby. The bus lines are kind of abundant in this area as well. And then 280 makes it super easy to get down to the South Bay if that's where you work, or even to the north part of the city. So really, really easy and smooth to hop on 280 and get pretty much anywhere in a decent amount of time. So what is there to do in this neighborhood? Well, I'm attempting to walk us from the park itself down through the residential streets and then over to Mission Street, which is one of the more dense commercial sections of the neighborhood. In terms of like food and other culture around here, it is one of the older pockets of San Francisco, and some of the establishments have just been around for decades. They're more low-key restaurants, probably ones that don't jump out if you're a city local here. They're not necessarily top of mind or on these big lists, but really, really good food. Mexican taquerias, a lot of El Salvadorian influence here as well, Asian supermarkets as well. So real diversity in terms of the offerings, and again, just like a little bit more hole in the wall, but just really, really good food. So we'll get to Mission Street in a second. We're trying to get there right now, walking up a hill. One of my clients talked about the neighborhood here, and they said that it feels really residential, but you have like the best burrito in the city 2 blocks away. So that kind of dichotomy of mostly single family residents, a lot of them as well, but then you have access to, again, a lot of culture and what makes this city so special. Some favorite restaurants are Dark Horse Inn, Halfway Club, and then one of the best coffee shops is Excelsior Coffee, so you have to go to those. There's a place on Excelsior in Naples that's supposed to have like the best carnitas burritos in the city, so definitely check that out. It's a neighborhood favorite for sure. So why does someone choose to live here? Well, I wanted to get a local's perspective. Of course, like I feel like I know this neighborhood because we sell homes here, but it's nothing like hearing from someone who lives here every day. So I talked to one of my favorite clients who owns a home in this part of town, raises her family here, and she was just kind of sharing with me. She used to live in the Mission, which is of course one of the most popular neighborhoods in San Francisco. There's so much to do there, some of the best restaurants, but she was saying that the Mission just didn't have as much of that community feel that she feels she gets here. So she was just talking about they have a lemon tree in their backyard and they trade fruits with their neighbors all the time. And I think that's just like a really special part about being able to live in a world-class city and have access to so much, but then also feeling like you are in the suburbs in some ways because you know your neighbors. In the Excelsior, people stick around here. There are, generations of families that live in this area, and so you don't have that sort of turnover that you can have in other parts of a big city, which I feel like is a really special part about living in this part of town. My clients also, you just have more space here, so they have a pretty sizable yard, which not every home in San Francisco has, and they also in their backyard put in a trapeze so that their girls can learn some aerial skills, which is just crazy cool. They also have chickens now in their backyard, so she kind of summed it up. She was like, we are able to do things that we never thought we would have been able to do with city living in this home that we enjoy now. So that to me, like, of course, music to my ears, but also just, again, a testament to this part of town and what you can get and what you can achieve here. So I love that, and I think at the end of the day, that's what I look for in a home myself. So really special pocket of town that isn't as well known, but should be, because it offers so much that you can't get in other parts of San Francisco. So on top of that, like, what do you get here for your money? From a real estate perspective, this is probably one of my favorite neighborhoods where you can get a home for under 1.5, and really like substantially under 1.5. The average price point in the Excelsior is $1,150,000. So that is quite different from a lot of the neighborhoods in the city. It is mostly single family homes. There's not many condos here, and there's a lot of that inventory. It doesn't turn over quite as much as some other pockets of town, in a good way and a bad way in some ways, but you can get a lot for your money. The average square footage is a little bit over 1,500 square feet. So nicely sized homes, not massive, but pretty nicely sized. Okay, so every neighborhood has its downsides. What are the downsides of living in Excelsior? I mean, some people, I've heard it's been called unapologetically unhip. So again, it doesn't have those like name brand restaurants or those Michelin star restaurants. But I think the people who live here, they don't care about that. They like the establishments that are here, and they're really, really good. Safety is definitely a topic of conversation. So safety is such a personal feeling. So if you're ever unsure about a neighborhood or you don't know it very well, definitely have to spend a lot of time getting to know it. The Excelsior has made light years of improvements over the years in terms of just being more recognizable, more accessible, and frankly safer. So again, it has to be more of a personal decision, but that's definitely something that I get asked by clients who are considering this part of town. Other things to keep in mind. So my client who lives here said that because Twin Peaks is not really blocking you here, it can get windy on some streets, especially ones that are a little bit up a hill. So wind is a factor, weather a little bit, except the weather is actually pretty good here in terms of sun. Sun is strong. Other pieces to note, I mean, it's not super walkable in terms of like you go down your street and you have a coffee shop, although we are walking down Mission, which is the commercial section of town right here. Other things to note, the streets here are very wide, which is fantastic. So compare it to like a Bernal where you have all these narrow streets where you can't really even drive two cars down it in opposing directions. But here everything is just wider and bigger, which is kind of nice. The downside to the streets here is that there are more cars in this neighborhood. It seems like more congestion, and so parking can be a little trickier, and you just kind of see a lot of cars, like multiple cars in driveways. So just like more of a visual, and sometimes can kind of be hard to park your car in the evenings if you don't have a spot. So just make sure if you buy in this area, you have a designated parking spot, which most do because these are all single family homes. The final piece is you can sometimes hear people doing donuts in the street here. So like living on a corner actually might not be the best choice because you could have some cars doing donuts in that intersection. Again, it's a little bit more anecdotal, but something that I do hear sometimes about the Excelsior. So if you're looking for the most accessibility to John McClaren Park, Excelsior is definitely my biggest recommendation. It may be a little bit quieter and feel a little bit too remote from the rest of the city, but I think that's actually what people love about it. It's this own little community that is strong with so much culture that there's so much pride in living in the Excelsior and just so many hidden gems. Okay, we have 2 more neighborhoods to get to. Let's go take a look at number 2 on the list, Ingleside. Okay, coming in at number 2, we have the neighborhood Ingleside. It's a little bit more of a trek to John McClaren. It's probably like a 5-minute drive, but very close. And it's one of those neighborhoods that reminds me actually a lot of Excelsior in a lot of ways in terms of the reasons people like living here and what attracts people to this part of town in terms of buying a home. So one of the reasons we're walking down this street in particular, this is Ashton Street, and right in front of me I can see the commercial section on Ocean Ave. We're gonna get to all of the best spots for food, for groceries, for coffee on Ocean Ave. We'll get there in a second, but I just wanted to kind of talk about this street briefly. So Ingleside is a neighborhood that has a lot of different pockets with actually different price points within it. So if you're really curious about this neighborhood and want to learn more about those different aspects, check out our video on Ingleside and I'll dissect, I actually did that video myself, I'll dissect the different pockets and the different price points. But this particular street, Ashton, divides up Ingleside Terraces and then Ingleside proper, which are 2 different price points. To the left of me is more of like a 2 million and above price point, and then over here to my right we have the average price point in Ingleside is around 1.3 for a single family home. You can definitely get it for less, definitely for more, but it's a really accessible price point. One of those neighborhoods where you can definitely get something under 1.5, which is harder to do in the rest of the city. So similar to Excelsior in that way. So this neighborhood reminds me a lot of Excelsior. The buyers for Ingleside are very similar to those of Excelsior. The great thing about this neighborhood is accessibility. So you can take Ocean Avenue and get to 280 and 101. You have Fort Funston on the west side, as well as Stonestown, which is a big mall in the city. You have like Zara, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Uniqlo, Sephora. There's a huge movie theater. So that is right on the west side of Ingleside. And then you also have the influence of some universities. So City College of San Francisco, you have SF State University as well. It's where my husband works. So those are flanking either side of the area. And so you have some youth and just kind of vibrancy from both of those. In terms of why someone would choose Excelsior over Ingleside, one or the other, the price per square foot here is actually a little bit lower than Excelsior. It's like in the high 700s, whereas Excelsior is the low 800s. So not that much of a difference, but the single family home inventory here, there's not really that many condos, so it's mostly single families. Some of them are detached, but most of them are attached homes, similar to what you'd get in like the Sunset. And I think overall the weather can be foggier here, so people aren't necessarily moving here for weather. They're moving here for the inventory that you get on the single family home front. They like the accessibility of Ocean Ave. They like that it's on the south part of the city, so you can get to tech jobs as well. So I really want to show you next the different pockets of the downtown area that I like the most, some of my favorite coffee shops and restaurants. Of course, there's a Whole Foods, so we'll go check out where that is too. My husband's favorite burger spot is on the street too. So we'll get to all of that in a second. Come jump in the car with us. Okay, we're gonna pop over to the main commercial strip of Ingleside, and it's right ahead of us here. Ocean Ave is the northmost part of the neighborhood, and it cuts directly across the full neighborhood and takes you basically from like the Sunset to Sunset area, like West Portal, Parkside, Stern Grove area, over all the way to the 280 highway. So It is definitely a thoroughfare for cars, and there's a lot of good stuff on this street. Right here on the corner, you have a wood fire pizza place. You can see ahead of us, the Muni lines run across Ocean Ave as well, so really great for commuting as well. I think a lot of the university students take the Muni from SF State to their homes. So 24-hour fitness you have, so that might be walkable to some parts of the neighborhood. And then you just have like your typical conveniences here. So we have a Walgreens. On the corner here is Java Ocean, which is one of my favorite spots. You can get really good smoothies there, sandwiches, salads. I go there a lot on the weekends, specifically for their smoothies. Little produce markets. We have some Asian grocery stores and bakeries, so a lot of that influence here. On the corner here is a great sushi spot. You have a fun bar right here, Ocean Ale House. And then here we have Whole Foods. So that's probably the main grocery store servicing this area. And they have a parking garage. The best burger, one of the best burgers in the city right here is Beep's Burgers. It's kind of an old school walk up kind of diner feel. And that's kind of the extent of Ocean Ave there. So you can get some good restaurants there for sure. You can get your groceries as well. And then we have on our left here, we have City College. They're doing some construction there. I don't know the extent of the construction, but the college is here and we have the expressway right in front of us, and I actually can see the top of John McClaren Park. So it is within eyesight. The top of the hill over there with the water tower is a symbol of the park. All right, so if you're liking this content, be sure to tune in Mondays at 5 p.m. We're always putting out new neighborhood videos and new content about San Francisco. We're headed to location number 3. It's actually gonna be a 2-for-1. We're gonna look at 2 neighborhoods in one little pocket of the city. Again, all close to John McClaren Park. One of the 2 little pockets is on the more affordable side, but it is right next to a neighborhood with more of a commercial feel. So I wonder if you have any guesses, but we'll be there in just a second. Okay, we're here at our final stop. If you guessed Sunnyside and Glen Park, you were exactly correct. So why am I lumping these 2 together? So Sunnyside fits into my category of really great, affordable locations near John McClaren Park. We're actually, by the way, in this beautiful conservatory and gardens that's in Sunnyside. We'll just take a second here and just enjoy the sun today. Sunnyside isn't actually very sunny a lot of the time, so today is a special day in the neighborhood. But anyway, so the reason that I lump those together is that the price point for Sunnyside is more around the $1.5 million range, which really, again, fits well with our affordable neighborhood near John McClaren. But Glen Park is sort of the more coveted in some ways, closer to like Noe, because it has a little pocket of downtown. It also has a BART station, so commuting is really fantastic from this section of town. So Sunnyside definitely lacks that sort of commercial hub. There's nowhere to really go walk for a coffee. There's not really restaurants in this pocket, but because you have Glen Park right next to it, they sort of feed off of each other in terms of somebody who maybe can't afford Glen Park's average price point of $2 million. Maybe they buy a home in Sunnyside instead with about a $500,000 less on average price point, but they get to explore the sort of the restaurants, the coffee shops, the Canyon Market, which is a great grocer in downtown Glen Park. And so they have the benefits of Glen Park, but with the price point of Sunnyside and still drivable to John McClaren Park. So I'm looking right now onto Monterey Boulevard, which cuts Sunnyside in half, basically east to west. And if you take Monterey all the way to the east side, you hit the 280 as well. So amazing, amazing commuter's paradise here. And then again, on the easternmost side of Sunnyside, you have Glen Park and then the Glen Park BART station. So not all of Sunnyside is walkable to the BART, but if you are on the eastern side, you definitely have that benefit. And then Ocean Avenue, which we were just at next to Ingleside, is on the southernmost part of Sunnyside as well. So you do have access to another commercial strip there. Sunnyside is fantastic. It's not on everyone's radar. It's not sunny, as I said, even though the name indicates that it is, but it's really at the heart of the city and surrounded by, again, Glen Park, Noe Valley, some just fantastic, fantastic neighborhoods that are maybe more on top of people's agenda. but a really sort of great entry-level price point. So a lot of our buyers who would rather have like a Noe, a Glen Park, or a Bernal, they get priced out of those neighborhoods a little bit because you do pay for sun and walkability, and Sunnyside has less of that compared to those other three. But because it's right next to them, you have so many of the benefits, even if you're okay with not having sun all the time, or maybe having to jump in your car a little bit more to get to places that you like. So if that's a trade-off you're willing to make and you want to spend, even up to $1 million less in terms of your price point, this is a fantastic choice for you. Not only is it accessible to John McClaren Park, but it also has Glen Canyon Park right north of it, very accessible. It is a stunning park. It's a canyon of sorts and really beautiful walking trails. It has some other recreational amenities as well, and just flanked by a lot of really special things. If you take Monterey also all the way to the west, you get pretty close accessibility to the area that starts to encompass the sunset. So a pretty good shot over to the ocean, so you can enjoy the beach as well, Ocean Beach. So that's a wrap on our 3 neighborhoods. Parks in San Francisco are such a core element of the lifestyle here. And if Golden Gate Park feels like the price point may not be for you, or you're looking for something a little bit, maybe even sleepier or a little bit more remote, or your commute is really important to you down to someplace like the South Bay, these 3 neighborhoods are really fantastic. And John McClaren Park, seriously, if you haven't been, you need to go, because it is such a stunning park. There's so much beauty there. The skyline views are just insane, and there's a lot to do. So if you have a family or you're going out with friends for the weekend, go visit the park, spend some time there. And if you have other questions about living in these neighborhoods, please feel free to reach out to us. If you're looking for a video about living around Golden Gate Park, check out this video below. We'd be happy to help you if you decide that you want to be a home buyer in San Francisco.